Good morning, everyone. Oh, there, I got your attention now. Got my attention, too. Welcome. If I could just have the remaining people as you're entering the facility, if we can just get into our seats as soon as possible. My name is Jamie Kunick, and I am one of the event coordinators for the day, and I am your host today. And I'm really excited that you're all here, your smiling faces. You know, it was really interesting as people were registering for this event. I had the opportunity to see where many of you were from, and it's kind of neat. So I have a little task for us today. I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you drove 3 hours to get here, and leave your hands up, okay? Keep your hands up. Did you drive 4 hours to get here? If not, drop your hands. Okay, so you still have hands up, 4 hours. 5 hours to get here. Well, I still see hands up. Is there any up on the balcony? No, I see 5 hours. Oh, there's a few. Wow. 6 hours? And they're smiling too. 7 hours? 8? 9 hours. 9 hours. Okay, so I see two. Oh, I see some hands. Put them up high because it's hard to see. Okay, now we're getting into double digits. 10 hours. Okay, so now I got to ask, how long did it take you to get here? 10 hours? I saw hands. Yes? 16. Is anyone here drove 16 or more hours? Wow. Welcome. Where are you from? Well, welcome, Port McNeill. Thank you for coming. You know, it's interesting as well because the Ritsema family had to get on a plane to get here. Is there anyone in the auditorium that had to actually get on a plane other than the Ritsema family to be here today? Oh, where are they? Where did you fly in from? Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome. You know, the Enderby Seventh-day Adventist Church has sponsored this event, and over the years we continue to discuss and talk about, you know, different value-added programs that we can offer to the Okanagan. And one of the things that we've done is done different advertising. So what would help us right now is who here saw the event posted on Facebook? If you could put your hand up. Okay, so we have some Facebook people. Thank you. How about a poster posted somewhere? Oh, wow, there's a lot of hands. We advertised for the first time digitally on Castanet. Did anyone register through that? Okay. And then lastly, you were invited here by a friend. Wonderful. That is great. Well, welcome everyone. We have an exciting day planned with some wonderful, beautiful music and 3 presentations from our friend Scott Ritsema. The first presentation is now, starting at 11. The second presentation will commence at 2 p.m. and then finally 4 p.m. So with that, this is a media seminar, so I'm going to ask you at this time to pull out your phones and silence them, please, and or shut them off. We are going to be recording today and live streaming to ensure we have quality recording and live streaming. I just ask that you silence your phones at this time and or shut them off. So at this time, I will invite our first group of musicians. They are the Lemgao family and friend, and they're going to open our session with some beautiful music. And directly after that, I'll come back up and we'll introduce Scott.
expressed with all my heart. Offer to a friend who took my place, and when a chorus I could not start, and when he saw in full just how much his love would cost, he still went the final mile between me and heaven, so I would not be lost. Were it not for grace, I could tell you where I'd be, wandering down some pointless road to nowhere, with my salvation up to me, and I know how that would go. The battles I would face, forever running but losing the race, were it not for grace. Forever running but losing the race, were it not for grace.
Scott Ritsema joins us from Michigan, where he and his family enjoy country living and homeschooling. He's an educator and international speaker. Scott's seminars on media use have been featured on satellite TV, radio, and at hundreds of live events. We're thrilled to have him here with us today, and I know we'll all come away with some valuable insights. Please join me in welcoming Scott Ritsema.
Test, test. What a good-looking bunch of people from all walks of life, from what I hear. And here we are, just beautifully coexisting in a beautiful place. You know, we are from Michigan, and we are mountain-deprived in Michigan. We are in, I believe the name of your province, as I see it on the license plate, is beautiful British Columbia. Yeah, beautiful, that's the name, beautiful British Columbia. Something tells me you're a little distracted right now, though, huh? Nope, it's supposed to be on the screen distracting you. We'll back that right up. The first lesson was, as we're getting to know each other here and some introductory superfluous remarks, there's something in the background distracting each and every one of us. Our first lesson in media, distraction. You can fill in the commentary for whatever that's supposed to mean. But the message, the media mind, how to be human again. I love this. We're just being human together today. A short day together with a lunch. I hope you're planning to stay for the entirety of the 3 messages. But here's a little eye-opener. If you're walking down the alley on your phone, you may want to keep your eyes open on what's around you. Oh, I'm sure he's okay, but boy, the media mind is checked out, yes? We assume the position. We are like this. We walk into oncoming traffic. Now, Car and Driver magazine, huge rise in pedestrian deaths, big cause for concern. They actually, in many municipalities, said, we've got such a problem of people walking into the street because we're just glued to our phones like this. We live here now. So instead of having the stop and go lights up at eye level for pedestrians that we've had for many years, we're going to put them down at curb level to meet people where they're at here. In Austria, they put pads on the lampposts to prevent injuries that way. Are you in love with your iPhone? The neuromarketing expert at Apple studied the brains of people many years ago, right after they launched the iPhone. And he said, what happens is you have a very specific relationship with your iPhone. Remember that word, relationship, for the session after lunch. What we learned from a very recent study we did was that there were actually 2 activations in the brain happening. This is neuromarketing expert Martin Lindstrom. 2 activations happening for people who are in love with their iPhones. Did you hear what I said? In love. Because we actually realized from the study that the same area of the brain that is activated when you are in love with someone is activated when you are in love with your iPhone. It's a tool. We're live streaming this. I like media, but ought I be in a love relationship with a piece of hardware? We touch, tap, and swipe our devices an average of 2,617 times per day. Do the math. Multiply that by the number of days in the year, 365 times 2,617. You're getting close to 1 million individual touches, taps, and swipes. I don't know. There's research on everything, but I don't know if there's research on how many times I touch my dog, my children, plants and soil, cooking implements, wood and nails, anything real. Anything where I'm just being human in the non-virtual world, which we didn't used to have to make a distinction for, but now we do. The virtual, the non-virtual, the actual world. Do I touch real things 1 million times? I'm not sure I do. Time to learn to be human again. In our family lives, in our social lives, in our church lives, time spent in nature, in labor and study, in our business endeavors, entrepreneurial efforts, arts, music, recreation, study. You go on and on and on and on and on of what it is, the beautiful tapestry of the human experience. And yes, including technology in its proper sphere, learning to be human again. Which takes me to Genesis 1:27. And if you allow me to have an opening prayer, Father in heaven, thank you for this time to consider deeper thoughts. I pray that you'd lead us to that which is true, that which is good, that which is beautiful. And we lack wisdom, and we ask for you to speak to our hearts and minds. And if any person in here is suffering physically, suffering emotionally, I pray that you just draw near to each one of us as the God of love that you are. In Jesus' name, amen. When I normally do this message at a church for a worship service, I'll have people turn to Genesis 1:27 as a basic sort of foundation for understanding what does it mean to be human. We were created by a creator, and it says something very special about you in that verse. In Genesis 1:27, it says you were made in his image, an image bearer of the divine. Now, I don't know about you, but I've found many ways to divert from what I know is my intention, my design, the proper protocols for me to thrive. I find myself going off this way and that in the past, and I find that when I return to God's design, his blueprint for living, it just tends to work out better. Teens now consume 9 hours of entertainment and social media per day. In the 80s, anybody grow up in the 80s, we did a lot of Nintendo, didn't we? Watched a lot of movies and stuff, but 3.5 hours. And then the rest of the day in the summer, we'd get outside, right? What did you do for fun when you were a kid? I want you to think about that. We're going to close with that in a little while. But 9 hours of entertainment and social media. That's nearly double just from 2007. 3.5 hours in the 80s has been skyrocketing. Teens, when asked, how much are you on your phone? Nearly half of them in the dark blue there, 45%, say I am almost constantly on my device. But that fact, usually I get the call and the invitation, boy, Scott Ritsema, can you come to our church, to our community event, to do your media on the brain seminar, because our young people, see, we adults are like, they're the ones with the problem. But then I saw this stat. Parents are spending nearly 8 hours a day on entertainment and social media. It's not that much less than the teens, huh? We are spending as parents 2 times more time just watching Netflix alone than all quality time with our children combined. The average adult spends more time looking at screens than sleeping. The average American spends 65% of their waking hours consuming media. I'm assuming it's similar in the West of all nations. The average American now spends, not just the West, globally, 4.7 hours on their smartphone per day, checks their phones 80 to 150 times a day, and still somehow we manage to watch 4 hours of television per day. There's a scripture, though, that speaks to me on this, because I look at the culture around like, oh, we've all gone crazy. We're dropping into manholes in the alley, and, we're doing these kind of numbers. And good thing I don't have a problem. But be careful with that, Because if the Bible counsels us, there's this wisdom here in a book called 2 Corinthians, toward the end of the Bible. It says that we shouldn't measure ourselves among ourselves and compare ourselves with ourselves. We want to say, what's the best me that I've been assigned? How can I improve in my walk, in my journey? My dad was an optometrist, and he would have people come into the office, and he'd ask them, how's your vision? How are you doing? Oh, I'm seeing fine. Okay, this was me up until a year ago. I'm seeing fine. But then the instruments come down, and you think everything's A-okay. Like, I'm good is kind of our normal default because change is uncomfortable. Challenging ourselves to do something hard, something new is uncomfortable. So we're always kind of, I'm good as I am here. But then you do the test. Which one is clearer, 1 or 2? 2 is clearer. 2 or 3? 3 is clear. 2 is clearer than 3 there. Now, can you read the top line? Oh, yeah, I can read that top line. The third line down. Am I supposed to be able to read that? So you learn the truth of the matter. You actually can see better with the prescription, but you didn't know until you compared it with something. So what I always challenge my audiences to do is take a nugget from somewhere in the presentations today and say, that's something I'm going to try. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to give it a test for 10 days maybe. And then see, how do I feel? How's life feel differently with that change in my media diet versus how I was before? That's the best way to tell, is to test things. The Bible says, test the Lord in this and see if he doesn't open the floodgates of blessing. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blue light at night, high stimulating media at night versus the old-fashioned kerosene lamps or the fireside, hearthside home in the evening. That's soothing, yes? You tend to get better sleep refraining from media in the evenings, especially high-stimulating media, which they found video games, especially for children, they're 4 times more overstimulating even than exciting, entertaining television in terms of the sleep disruption that is achieved from evening video game play. We could sum that up with the media mind is tired. This is going to be our conceptual framework. We're going to bring this slide up over and over again. The media mind, when you need the lights here and your phone, is checked out. But a lot of us just have less energy. We could say the mind of Christ, or the design template for me, is going to be more energized. By the way, when I put mind of Christ up there, and we're coming from different walks of life here, I'm keenly aware that when I say Christ, when I say Jesus, to many people they know love, hope, joy, peace. But others hear that, and they're the script of history, the dark ages, the times of coercive so-called Christianity come to mind. And you go, that makes me feel a little uneasy. I know, because I'm a historian, and I feel uneasy as well. But I'm going to tell you something from Bible prophecy. We don't have time to do a Bible prophecy seminar today, but I could email you one. I think there's some notebooks that are going around. Yeah, you can sign in your email if you want. The Bible calls that expression of Christianity Antichrist. Oh, if I could spend the next 20 minutes unpacking that, but we're in the media mind seminar, not the Bible prophecy and the history of distorted so-called Christianity, but just to make everybody feel at ease about that. 96.6% of toddlers and preschools are using mobile devices today. That's contrary to the recommendations of the AAP. In America, at least, they said, children under 2, please no media for those little children. 2 to 5-year-olds are averaging 4 hours of screen time per day, and by the age of 7, they've spent an entire year of their lives in front of a TV screen. That when you add up the number of hours, it's as if a whole year of their lives was spent just on television. Then you add the other devices. And they start early here, don't they? This is a viral news report that went around. This baby's learning to use the iPad. But then you give the baby the magazine. It's like, hey, the pictures don't move. The screen doesn't swipe. I'm trying to pinch it and make it bigger and smaller. How does real life really work? Well, they don't know when they're inducted into a virtual world from babyhood. This is not a fake image. This is a real product. The Fisher-Price iPad activity seat, newborn to toddler. But then they got to learn to use the potty. And how else could we ever imagine learning to use the potty other than iPotty for iPad? Oh, man. This book was published 40 years ago, Neil Postman, The Disappearance of Childhood. And you might say, well, that sounds a little hyperbolic. That's a little extreme sounding. Really, is childhood going to disappear? But today, 40 years later, you can carve up childhood pretty much 1/3 sleep, 1/3 media, 1/3 school, and very little marginal time for anything else that used to comprise the bulk of childhood. Richard Louv called it The Last Child in the Woods. It's a very hopeful book, actually, about reclaiming nature and childhood. And one factoid out of this book blew my mind. Study was done where they surveyed 11-year-olds. How many of you have ever climbed a tree before? Now, that sounds like one of those stories, you're at the library, you got the children's story at church, and you ask the kids a question to get everybody's hand to go up, right? How many of you have ever seen a dog? And every kid's hand goes up because it's one of the, how many of you have ever climbed a tree? Well, of course. The majority of 11-year-olds today have never climbed a tree. Is that not a tragic and sad fact? If that's not, how about this one? 3/4 of UK children spend less time outdoors than prison inmates spend outdoors. When I go to Genesis 1:27, Garden of Eden, God designed for us to be in nature. 6 to 16-year-old kids are spending twice as much time just playing video games than all outdoor activities combined. I'm going to cite Dr. Nicholas Kardaras, author of the book Glow Kids. He says, kids raised with screens, in his research, he's also a practitioner of these mental health professions, kids raised with screens were almost universally what I like to call uninterested and uninteresting, bored and boring. They lacked a natural curiosity and a sense of wonder and imagination that non-screen kids seem to have. They didn't know or care to know about what was happening around them in the world. All that seemed to drive them was a perpetual need to be stimulated and entertained by their digital devices. The media mind becomes bored, actually. The pursuit of entertainment leads to boredom. And it also makes you a more boring person, according to Dr. Kardaras. The mind of Christ, curious, inquisitive, hungering and thirsting for knowledge. The media mind is immersed in what I like to call the counterfeit reality. But the mind of Christ is awake to the wonders of God's reality. The media mind is enclosed in that virtual prison, but the mind of Christ is fully alive. There was a book written over 100 years ago called The Desire of Ages. I love this quote from that book. The more quiet and simple the life of the child, the more free from artificial excitement, and the more in harmony with nature, the more favorable it is to physical and mental vigor and to spiritual strength. Is that true? It's like that's long-lost wisdom that we need to recapture, yes? These guys seem to have recaptured it. You know who that is? And that? And that? Okay, these are the biggest of the big tech titans, yes? Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Tim Cook, current CEO of Apple. What do they all have in common? Have you heard this anecdote? This blew my mind. It blew the mind of a New York Times journalist when he went and interviewed Steve Jobs when the iPad was about to be released. And he said, Mr. Jobs, tell us how your kids are enjoying this thing, the prototype. It's about to hit the store shelves. Your kids are probably just enamored with this iPad, right? And he says, well, actually, my kids have never touched one. My kids don't use the iPads. We limit technology in our home. The journalist thought the Jobs family must have touchscreen walls. Like everything is tech there, right? 45 minutes max per day for Bill Gates' teenagers when he had teenagers in the home. And that was internet use for productive, educational, edifying purposes. Tim Cook doesn't have children, but has a nephew that he cares about, and he says, I don't want him on social media, his nephew. These are Hollywood stars. We'll touch on Hollywood a little more in the second afternoon session. But these are a few who admitted to journalists that their children don't consume the entertainment that their industry is putting out. Video games, Adam Alter interviewed video game designers, and many of them, same story, but also they themselves, as video game designers, admitted, we won't even play that game or that kind of game because we know how addictive it is designed to be. We'll come back to addiction in just a little bit. Here's a Silicon Valley CEO. She was interviewed and asked, what do you do with your own children? And she said, well, my 5-year-old, up to age 5, we have no media. World Health Organization said up to age 5, the less the better. So that's interesting. American Academy of Pediatrics said 2 and under. Although at one point they pulled that back and they said, well, screen time is synonymous with time. Just choose your media wisely. And then from the child development community and mental health community, they got a lot of backlash and then reinstated the recommendation of no screen time. But for older children, max 30 minutes per day. You start interviewing people at Facebook and all the big tech firms in Silicon Valley and all the engineers, and you start getting a consensus. You start getting the same message. Very limited use of these entertainment social media platforms. The most sought after private school in Silicon Valley is the Waldorf School of the Peninsula, which is, pen and pencil, pencil and paper, chalk and chalkboards, gardening, real, physical, non-virtual. Screens are prohibited until high school or middle school, depending on which Waldorf you're talking about. But you could call it the Silicon Valley disconnected childhood. The children are disconnected from so much media. And it begs the question, well, what do all of these super techies know that the rest of us don't know? And actually, we can know it. It's not a secret conspiracy. A dark consensus about screens and kids begins to emerge in Silicon Valley, New York Times wrote. The people who are closest to a thing are often the most wary of it. Why? Because they know the most about it, yes? Technologists know how phones really work. And many have decided they don't want their own children anywhere near them. A wariness that has been slowly brewing is turning into a region-wide consensus. The benefits of screen as a learning tool are overblown, and the risks of addiction and stunting development seem high. Now, that's stating it very, very mildly. Seem high. It's actually quite certain that there are risks for addiction and stunting development associated with excessive screen time use at the wrong ages of the wrong kinds, the wrong frequency of use, the most addictive types of technology, and overstimulating in their nature. But Time magazine published, "You now have a shorter attention span than a goldfish." This is young and old. This isn't just children. Average human attention span, they said, is 8 seconds, and the goldfish's is 9. I don't know how they determined that, but that made an interesting, eye-opening moment for us to say, okay, our attention span has dropped massively in recent years. But I go back to nature and the garden concept. Did you know numerous studies have shown that nature exposure, green spaces, being in the outdoors actually increases attention span? Even just watching fish swimming in a fish tank increases attention span, which we can achieve that 9 seconds. We can do it. Just watch the fish for a while, and by beholding that, we can become changed. Media mind is distractible, but the mind of Christ is attentive. We just, as humans, we're designed to focus attention on something, to accomplish something, using executive function where our prefrontal cortex pays attention. That same area of the brain, however, also helps us to regulate our emotions and impulses. So we can become more self-regulating people by increasing our attention span, by reducing media exposure. Very interesting. Exercise wise judgment and planning, and have what the Bible calls the fruit of the Spirit, self-control in our lives, more that executive function, basically. Another great advantage, by the way, to a long attention span is the power to think and to do. I believe that as image bearers of God, we're given that power as small c creators, and that is a powerful agency for the good of our fellow man, for us to do things that matter. And it's the work of really child development, true education, to develop that power in the young, but we can all gain it. And that way we will not just be thinkers, we will not be just reflectors of other men's thoughts and the media's thoughts, but we will be thinkers ourselves. We'll be individual, critically thinking people. Well, here's what they say is the average person to have the light bulb go off moment, the aha moment when you're solving a problem, when you're engaged in a creative enterprise, when you're focused on something, takes minimum 15 to 20 minutes to achieve that bingo, I got it, that's what I needed moment. 15 to 20 minutes, how many seconds is that? Math students? That's like 1,000 seconds, and our attention span is how long now? 8 seconds? We're never going to get to the 1,000 seconds. So, boy, the media mind is dull. The mind of Christ, we can be more creative. We can have more ingenuity, more critical thought. But now, the really serious stuff. After holding steady for decades, immediately after the advent of social media, teen suicide rose by 70% in just 10 years. Among age 10 to 14, the rate went up 133%. And then among 12 to 14-year-old girls, suicide went up threefold. These are American numbers, but they're mirrored in high-tech immersion, large social media use societies. Have you seen this on headline news a lot, on front page of the paper? This is massive. If there was a 25% rise, that'd be huge. This is double, triple, quadruple that, and more. Gene Twenge, author of the book iGen, tracks generations of young people and how their mental health is, how they live their lives, going back many generations. And as a social scientist at San Diego State University, she has studied this generation that she's named iGen, the young people now, and has identified right at the advent of social media, ubiquitous use of the smartphone, bam, the mental health problems started to just skyrocket. Self-worth cratering. And also, she's compared it with the mental health of the younger children. You know, we were talking about little children earlier and World Health Organization and all that. The mental health of the youth, the teens, actually is being harmed more by screen exposure than it is harming the little children. Why are more American teenagers than ever suffering from severe anxiety? American Psychological Association survey shows teen stress rivals that of adults. Between 2010 and 2016, the number of adolescents who experienced at least one major depressive episode leapt by 60% during those years of the rollout of these technologies. And this was a survey that was done. Sometimes people look at mental health data and the changes over time, and they think, well, that might be due in part to more seeking of mental health help, or the more acceptable use of the mental health profession. And so that would cause the numbers to rise, even though there's not actually a greater mental health harm. But these are surveys, these are objective that are done regularly, where it's just you're asked, would you qualify by these questions that are asked by a psychiatrist, but you're not actually seeking a mental health professional in those surveys. So those are really good numbers, 60% jump, really bad numbers actually, 60% jump in depression during those years. Cardara says, I've worked with over 1,000 teens in the past 15 years, and I've observed that students who have been raised on a high-tech diet not only appear to struggle more with attention and focus, but also seem to suffer from an adolescent malaise that appears to be a direct byproduct of their digital immersion. Indeed, over 200 peer-reviewed studies point to screen time correlating to increased ADHD, covered that already with the attention span, but screen addiction, we're going to touch on that, increased aggression, we'll touch on that in the first afternoon session, depression, anxiety, even psychosis. It's these kinds of realizations that have led the president of Facebook, right there with Mark Zuckerberg at the founding of Facebook. His name is Sean Parker. He went on this apology tour for having been a part of creating this social media monolith that has changed the mental health of a generation. And he said, God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You can hear the pangs of conscience there. Now, of course, to bring in the recognition of the balance that these tools, these platforms can be utilized in ways that can be beneficial. But for the mass, for the majority, particularly for those not of mature ages, you're seeing the numbers come in harmful ways, and that can even alter adult brains as well, which we'll touch on in a moment. The media mind is just more dysfunctional, but the mind of Christ, we can be healed, balanced, well. They did a study, two different studies, one at the University of Pennsylvania, another one in Denmark, where they took university-age students. And they said, okay, we're going to just have a week of no social media. It's like, okay, who's going to volunteer for that? Well, they got enough people. And they took them off social media for 1 week. What happened? 33% drop in feelings of depression in 1 week of no social media. Powerful. But and also anxiety went down as well, same magnitude. But it's not evenly distributed. The harms of social media or the benefits of refraining or reducing social media are not equally distributed among all kinds of people. If these are thoughts and feelings that enter into your heart, that enter into your mind periodically, just as your psychological profile, your personality, if that kind of describes you sometimes, the more that you feel those feelings, the more harmful social media exposure is. which makes sense, doesn't it? Many of my friends are happier than me. I often feel inferior to others. Many of my friends have a better life than me. Then when you go on social media and the comparison happens, and you feel more low. So it's just kind of a natural law of the mind. The media mind becomes more depressed, anxious, and stressed. The mind of Christ more content, joyful, and peaceful. And that's where I want to give you some really, really, really good news. Really good news. I mean, I gave you some good news with Denmark, University of Pennsylvania, 7 days, no social media, 33% drop in depression and anxiety. But here's even more data. Dr. Victoria Dunkley, she's a psychiatrist and does not use the traditional approach of pharmaceutical. She said she's treated hundreds of children with previously diagnosed disorders, but her prescription is simply a 100% media abstinence for 3 weeks. And these are adolescents mostly that are coming to her practice and in California. 100% media abstinence, abstaining from media. No media for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in some cases. Many different treatments, and many different mental health conditions that she's treating. So here are the results. 80% of her patients have the majority of their symptoms disappear in 3 weeks. Half, in 3 weeks already, of just no media have all of their symptoms disappear. And screen time, she says, is a contributing factor for virtually all the children she has treated. You know, another individual comes to mind, Dr. Neil Nedley in California also. He does a depression anxiety recovery program. And as a part of that, there is a media fast involved. But they add more things to do. Like, we're going to make sure we're also doing this, this, and this instead of media, where her numbers are not prescriptive, it's just restrictive. It's just, you don't use screens, and it's very strict, but you don't use screens. Now, you could be in her numbers just staring at a blank white wall. I mean, you could be in her numbers just, ruminating and sitting there staring at nothing. So her numbers are good, but watch this. Nedley's numbers. Dr. Neil Nedley, when people come into his inpatient program, they're focused on nutrition, exercise, fresh water, nature exposure, fresh air, sunlight, making sure we're off of substances like caffeine and alcohol and other things that can disrupt our mental condition. Also rest, good sleep, weekly rest, and just thinking true thoughts. They have New Start, NEWSTART, nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, fresh air, rest, and trust in God. Thinking that which is true, not believing the lies that we tell ourselves that are told to us or we're told to us. He gets 97% depression reversal by applying New Start, including a media fast. Powerful, powerful. I began prescribing video game restrictions, she says, with startling results. She says, I observed how the vast majority of children exhibited certain symptoms surrounding gameplay, symptoms strikingly similar to amphetamine exposure. This is the reality, we'll come back to that. But the symptoms resolved in the days or weeks of complete abstention. Their development would grow by leaps and bounds when screens were most restricted. So the good news, yes, the media mind is not well, but the mind of Christ can be healing. This is a positive message. Yes, diagnosing the current state of our societies is a sobering exercise. But don't stay there. Have hope. Have a recognition of the solution. Now, I haven't talked a lot about my past and my experience with media, so let me get a little vulnerable. You guys are friendly, right? See, we Americans know you Canadians are very friendly people. So I'm not hesitating to do this, but hi, I'm Scott, and I'm a recovering social media addict. I don't like social media today. It's not hard for me to stay off of it, but I was once addicted. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody from my age group, roughly? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. This was music to my ears. You ready for it? Kids are like, what are these sounds? Did I get any? Did I?
You got mail.
I got email. Have you heard of it? Electronic mail. And I was on there looking up profiles of, pretty girls I wanted to chat with. And I'm telling you, I'm being vulnerable. I'd be up there till midnight. My mom would come in. You have a test tomorrow. Did you study yet? Why are you not in bed? Oh, I'm chatting. And My sister tried to call all morning Saturday morning and couldn't get through. Were you on the internet? Yeah, I was on the internet. That used to plug into the phone jack, as many of you know. Now, you know you're addicted when, in a recent survey, internet connection outranks blank in the things millennials value most for quality of life. And the answer was, I need an internet connection more than hot water or daylight. The daylight part for me really made my heart sink. Nature is so wonderful, so therapeutic, so beautiful. Oh, we need more nature. You'd rather go without ever seeing the light of day again, ever seeing the world around you. You'd rather go without that than go without an internet connection. Nomophobia, the fear of not having your mobile phone. 66% of people suffer from this, I'm told. And it ranks as high on people's fear scale. This was a survey in London. As high as a terrorist attack, which you die from not having your phone. Now, that's quite something. In one UK survey, 73% of respondents, after misplacing their phone, were asked what word best describes your emotion. 73% of them said, I've misplaced my phone. Panic! It's smartphone loss anxiety disorder, an actual thing. This is not parody, this is real. Whew. In Sherry Turkle's research at MIT, she has found that a lost cell phone hits people emotionally like the death of a loved one. Remember our opening slide? Are you in love with your iPhone? It only makes sense, yes? Now that's all where we kind of collectively laugh at ourselves. It is pretty bad, but it gets actually very serious. Dr. Kardaras says, I've worked with hundreds of heroin addicts, and what I can say is that it's easier to treat a heroin addict than a true screen addict. Just wait till you see the brain scans of a pornography addict in a minute. Dr. Peter Wybrow is the director of neuroscience at UCLA. He calls screens electronic cocaine. And when we use words like screen time, like Kardaras said, 200 peer-reviewed studies have linked screen time to increases in all these disorders. We have to recognize also not all screen time is created equal. Like earlier, the overstimulating effect of video games on sleep disruption for children is fourfold potency versus entertainment television. So there's differences in magnitude. If you're streaming this and just watching this is not an overstimulating experience. It's the fast flashing of screens, the jumping from here to there, the feedback loop, the stimulus response factory that these addictive technologies are designed to be. So just be aware, you're working on spreadsheets at work. That's not the kind of screen time we're talking. I don't think many people get home from work like, I need more spreadsheets. Well, maybe somebody do. Somebody loves spreadsheets that much. That's a different condition altogether. Chinese researchers call it digital heroin. Dr. Dunkley refers to these as stimulants that are not unlike caffeine, amphetamines, or cocaine. Dr. Andrew Doan, U.S. Navy, he works with addiction recovery with the young men there, and he calls it digital pharmakia. Pharmakia is a Greek word for sorcery or drug use. Dr. Kardaras again says, we now know that those iPads, smartphones, and Xboxes are a form of digital drug. Recent brain imaging research is showing that they affect the brain's frontal cortex, which controls executive functioning, including impulse control, in exactly the same way that cocaine does. A digital drug like cocaine. But did you catch that? That was kind of a complex sentence. Semi-literate, I have to read it again. Recent brain imaging research is showing that they affect the brain's frontal cortex, which controls executive functioning, including impulse control. So they affect our impulse control in exactly the same way that cocaine does. Wow, digital drug. Ian Bogost is a famous video game creator. He says that these habit-forming technologies are the cigarettes of this century. What do you think he means by that? What do you think he means by the cigarettes of this century? It's not just the harms. Yes, it's the harms. Yes, it's the harms. But it's the lack of transparency with the industry. Big tobacco covering up buying the science, covering up the harms, the carcinogenic harms of their product. We're talking about a big tech monolith of all types, bringing this to the population in a way there is not full disclosure of its effects. But the research is coming in, and we can become aware, and we can inform and make changes ourselves. We may not see wholesale reforms. The media mind, frankly, is addicted. But can I give you some hope? The Bible says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. That when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will raise up a standard. And that's not meant in the literal sense. The New Testament, Jesus says, put your sword back in its place. The kingdoms of this world are coming to nothing. My kingdom is not of this world. So he calls us to love our enemies, to pray for those who persecute us. But we can be protected with the right choices. Our children's minds can be shielded and enhanced with nature. So this is, again, Sean Parker. He was talking in this interview about the dopamine effect of these media. And he said, we designed these platforms to give them a little dopamine hit here, give them a little dopamine hit there, to keep them on the platform, to keep them contributing content, and that fulfills their business model. And he said it this way: the inventors, creators, it's me, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Kevin Systrom on Instagram, it's all these people understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. I told you it was an apology tour, didn't I? Man, he really needed to get that off his chest. He's like, we were young, ambitious, tech gurus, weaving the wizardry of digital pharmakia, and we knew what we were doing, and we did it anyway. This is Dr. Catherine Steiner Adair, author of the book, The Big Disconnect. She says, talk of addiction is not hyperbole. It is clinical reality. The World Health Organization and in America, the Diagnostics and Statistics Manual, DSM-5, both recognize media addictions as diagnosable real conditions, particularly video games, particularly pornographic addictions. But she says, as adults, we may choose to mess with our own mind and gamble with our own neurology, freedom. But I have never met a caring parent who would knowingly risk his or her child's future in this way. And yet we are handing these devices that we use the language of addiction to describe over to our children, who are even more vulnerable to the impact of everyday use on their developing brains. We need to rethink these things, she says. Cardara says, your kid's brain on Minecraft looks like a brain on drugs. That's a pretty alarming statement. But he says, no wonder we have a hard time peeling kids from their screens and find our little ones agitated when their screen time is interrupted. Minecraft, I don't think of that as that's not like a violent shoot-'em-up game, that's not immersive World of Warcraft type of game. That's a pretty simple game for little children. But he's like, look at their brains. Oh, I told you I'd show you if the brain on Minecraft looks like a brain on drugs, how much more a brain on pornography addiction? This is a normal brain under a SPECT scan, single photon emission computerized tomography scan. This is the brain of somebody who has succumbed to that pornographic addiction. Look at the prefrontal cortex on the bottom. This is alarming. This is a cocaine addict's brain from the bottom now compared to a pornography addict's brain. It's actually worse, isn't it? It's actually worse in terms of the areas of non-functionality. This brain on drugs reminded me of something, again, from the 80s. Does anybody remember it? Did they? Oh, see, I'm not in the United States, the Partnership for Drug-Free America, but some of you are aware of this, even as Canadians. In America, we had this commercial that would run. It was a public service announcement to help us kids stay off of drugs, because the 60s and 70s had just happened, and the 80s crack cocaine epidemic was happening. And so they said, we got to help these kids make good choices. So we're going to put the commercial on, and it was everywhere. It was like, well, I'll tell you about those in a second. Here's the commercial, okay? There's a frying pan, there's an egg. The frying pan's hot, sizzly, butter oil, and the egg is, you're looking at the egg, and they say, this is your brain. And then the music turns to this ominous music, and they crack it and sizzle that egg in the pan, and they go, this is your brain on drugs. any questions? And I'm a little kid going, no, I don't have any questions. Like, thank you to those people that did that, because it actually helped me. I think it helped me when I could be driving down, my parents would be driving me down the road, and the billboards, like, say no to drugs, say no to drugs, say no to drugs, everywhere. And I went to a Christian school at the chapel or the assembly in a public school. He comes in, and he's like, hey, kids, thanks for having me as your speaker today. I'm so-and-so, and I'm from the 60s. I did the drugs and played in the band, and what was I going to say next? I don't remember, man. And I was like, okay, that's a testimony of somebody who had their life. He talked about how his friends died of ODs, and man, are we living that right now, the drugs. We could have a whole seminar day on that. But what I'm suggesting is maybe we need a campaign like this. I mean, if nothing more than within our own families and communities, we need a campaign like this for our media addictions, don't we? This is the 1954 Milner study, where they discovered the addiction pathway, the pleasure receptors in the mouse's brain, called the nucleus accumbens. And what they did was they made it so that there was a wire right there into that pleasure center, and the mouse could simply tap the lever, and it would stimulate the pleasure reception of the mouse, and it would feel pleasure. Like, whoo, that felt good. Oh, that felt good. And the mouse quickly learned, press the lever, feel good. Press the lever, feel good. They got addicted to the lever, and here's how. Their food is over here, their wheel is over here, their maze is over here, and living like a normal mouse now is sacrificed in favor of obsession with the lever. Should I eat my food? The bread of life, yes. Shall I eat that? No, I just need my lever. That's all I need. This is distasteful. Hard work on a wheel in order to earn the runner's high every mouse must earn? No way. This is the quick fix. This is the easy route. Oh, the painful brain process of figuring that maze out. Oh, I know it feels good at the end of the maze, but this is so much easier. The results were the mice stopped eating and were on the brink of death. They stopped eating entirely and were starving themselves to death. How does pleasure really work in reality, in God's reality, in the design template for how we can thrive? You sponsor the education of a child in Bangladesh or Africa or wherever, a developing nation. When you do that as a family and you have their picture, if you feel good. Pleasure follows when you help somebody, when you engage in altruistic deeds. There are many studies on altruism, community service, doing good for others. We get a reward out of it in our pleasure receptors. We feel happy. How about studying something hard together, sharing what you've learned with others? Pleasure follows. View a beautiful sunset, pleasure follows. Or a rainbow. Where are my kids? On Salmon Arm, on Shuswap Lake. The most incredible rainbow, like start to finish, full rainbow right there, with your incredible mountains in the background. Like, oh man, pleasure follows. Enjoy a meal together as a family, a picnic, pleasure follows. Invest in a marital relationship, pleasure follows. Attend a joyful wedding celebration, pleasure follows. Accomplish a difficult task, pleasure follows. Basically, the refrain is like that for a reason. It's like the cart and the horse. You heard this concept, the cart before the horse? There was a cartoon once of the guy with the horse behind him, and he's trying to actually move, and he's not going anywhere. Pleasure follows naturally when we do things that work biologically, psychologically, spiritually, emotionally within us, relationally. Pleasure follows, pleasure follows. But our culture has done the backwards thing. We've put the cart before the horse, and we're trying to seek pleasure as an end in itself. Give me the stimulation, give me the entertainment, give me the next hit of dopamine, and we get all messed up doing it that way. The more media you consume, the less happy you are. The more media you consume, the more bored you are. Now, boredom is a uniquely modern phenomenon. When you look in the English literature prior to the Industrial Revolution, go back to the agrarian societies and read, and you don't find anybody ever talking about boredom. You can't even find the word, actually. It's a uniquely modern concept because we are so entertained, so stimulated, that boredom is a result of that overstimulation. A more natural way of living, boredom disappears. You get busy with things that are meaningful to you. Well, there's the pleasure receptors I was talking about in the mouse's brain, except these are human brain scans. Do you see how nice and orange it is on the healthy brain? Lit up nice and strong there, pleasure centers, nucleus accumbens. The drug abuser, however, has lost happiness. Do you see that? It's sad. Now, I don't say that as a judgment of anybody, because I was a drug abuser, and my drug of choice was called Mountain Dew. Hi, I'm Scott. I'm a recovering Mountain Dew addict. At times, I would be known to drink 3 liters of it in an afternoon and an evening. And the caffeine rush, the sugar high. But here's the thing. I didn't want to eat broccoli after drinking the Mountain Dew. You get the analogy? When I've done something that is overstimulating the tastes, the real thing is distasteful. The Bible says, how sweet are your words to my taste. I refer to this as the bread of life, right? It's actually sweet. You know, studying, reading ancient literature, I mean, it's like humbling to hold something in your hand for such long ago that tells of the love of God. It's sweet. But many of us, we might give that a try and be like, I have no time. It's not interesting to me. Well, there's another verse that actually helps diagnose that. A sated man loathes honey. So this is sweeter than honey. But if I'm sated, satiated, satisfied, filled, then I would loathe even the honey. But the good news about this is, look at the drug abuser after 1 month of abstinence. Those colors are starting to light up again a little bit, aren't they? And then after 14 months of abstinence, doesn't that look just wonderful? That looks just as good as it did before. The pleasure in the middle of the brain there, the orange. That's a really, really encouraging recognition from the addiction recovery field that you really can recover. What we might have done to harm ourselves, even, get into a condition that's got a name, and I'm not that worried about a name because that rules out the application of this message to those who don't have a named condition. I actually like to think of this as being on a spectrum, like the happiest person in the world, the least happy person in the world, and then every notch in between of happiness that can exist. And they have to kind of arbitrarily come in at some point and be like, well, if you answer yes to 4 of these 7 questions, then that puts you on this side of the, in this case, depression scale, and boop, that where we drop the pin is called depression. This is major depression. This is borderline. And so they kind of come up with those measurements. But I might be like smack dab in the middle, and I wouldn't show up on the radar of any of these sorts of questionnaires and diagnoses. But don't I want to be moving that direction? I like to think directionally more than qualifying it as a category, because then that applies to every one of us. I might be like 90th%. I want to move. I just want more joy. I just want more energy. I just want less anxiety. So you could have anxiety, right? This is an anxiety disorder. You might land here or here. Let's think directionally. How can I be improving and being, the Bible calls it transformed by the renewing of our minds. Attention span, same thing, right? So you can take all of these different categories and say directionally, what changes, what choices can I make in my life to have more nature exposure, to have better nutrition, to have lower stimulating, less frequent, long durations of media, have more balance in my media use? Is there some kind of media that I can fast from entirely and go 3 weeks without it or 10 days without it and see what happens? Try a set of lenses and go, which one is clearer there? And then the mind can be healed. I like that as our last slide, the renewed mind. It's full, it's back. Somebody might have seen that other one and been like, what have I done to myself? I'm ruined forever. No, you're not. You're not. Because we have a God who is powerful to renew, to heal. You know, the word salvation actually is healing. The Greek word in the New Testament for salvation is to be healed, to be restored. So 2 p.m. this afternoon, we're going to hit anti-social media. The cuddling with strangers craze. Will robots teach emotional intelligence? What happened to kids when they were 5th graders were taken out of Los Angeles for 5 days to the mountains? What were the surprising results of that exposure, that experiment? And I want to close with a wonderful video clip of I asked you guys to think about what you did for fun when you were a kid. I think this video will take us home, and then after the video, we'll have some other people come out and close the morning program. So let's roll that clip.
When you were a kid, what did you do for fun?
So we go blueberry picking, for instance. That's so cute. But it was true.
We grew watermelons, plantains.
I found an old sign which was big enough for me to sit on. It made a great toboggan. It was very slick, very fast.
I had a few fish in my basket, and I looked up on this bluff, and here's this black bear sitting there watching me. If he starts chasing me, I'm going to keep throwing the fish out of my basket until he's gorged and he won't bother me.
And what did you like to do for fun?
You know, you go door to door, get a group of kids, and you play lots of games, hide and seek, just going out to the field and playing baseball.
And we built these massive forts, you know, the kind that you can actually sit in and play in, you know, with our friends, and it was just really wonderful.
So what do you like to do for fun?
Video games, definitely. I like to go on my phone, text, some email.
My favorite thing to do in the world is definitely watching videos and playing video games. Those take up so much of my time.
3 hours or 3 to 4 hours a day. Same. 5 hours straight.
Just last week, I watched 23 episodes of a TV series in less than 4 days.
I forget. I'm in a house, I have parents, I have a sister, I have a dog, I just think I'm in the video game, I completely get lost. I would die if I don't have my tablet.
Whenever I feel upset, I'd play video games and I'd feel normal. It's really wonderful.
When your daughters grow up, your great-great-grandkids, what do you think will happen if this trend continues?
It's scary to think that they'll never have to leave the house.
Cindy grew up doing a lot of the things that I did and enjoyed. And I see what my grandsons are doing today, and it's mind-boggling.
By the time they have kids, it's going to be a really different environment.
I actually feel a little sad because I feel like he's missing out on what's out there in the beautiful world.
Special connection with nature. I think it's innate in all children, but needs to be nurtured.
This is working. Wow, was that impactful? I am slightly horrified, yet I'm a teacher too, and I see this in a lot of my students and myself. So I hope, I'm excited for the afternoon to learn some more, hopefully get out of this rut, to hopefully bring a little hope to the stuff we've heard today. I'd like to sing Amazing Grace. If you know the song and would like to sing with us, please join in.
Saved a wretch like me.
we'll just have a couple announcements before we release you here.
Was that a great morning session? Wow, I have lots to reflect upon. You know, it's that time. I think there'll be a slide coming up. My stomach is speaking to me. It's lunchtime. And all of you will be provided a lunch, which is a wonderful thing. I know when you registered, you were asked if you needed a gluten-free lunch. So when you exit the auditorium, there will be volunteers outside. You'll see some tables. Please help yourself to a lunch. Those that have requested a gluten-free lunch, you see a table identified as gluten-free. So please enjoy your lunch. We ask that we go outside and appreciate some of this beautiful weather that we have today. There are only about 60 seats, I believe, in the lobby. So I ask that if you are not, if you don't have immobility issues or are elderly that need to sit down, I'd ask that we spend some time outside together reflecting upon and discussing what we've learned. And we look forward to seeing you here again. 2 p.m. is the next session, so please be in your seats by 2 p.m. I have a special note from one of the ladies that has prepared these lunches. You will see in your lunch a Peruvian mandarin. Have you ever had one of those? They look horrible, but they taste great. So don't be afraid of them. So please, let's enjoy our lunch. And if you like, I'd just like to say a quick prayer for our lunch, and then we'll have some time together. Gracious Father, I thank you for the morning, and I just pray that you would bless our lunch, make it nourishing for us and our minds to prepare us for the afternoon session. And thank you again, above all, for all that you do for us. In Jesus' name, amen. We'll see you back at 2 p.m.